I would say that while I met some male officers who resented my presence, the presence of my gender, I also met some very matured officers who even in 80s could understand that women have a position, and once they secure that position through a tough exam in UPSC and have gone through rigorous training, they deserve to be where their rank deserves to be.
The Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 series Jaipur Literature Festival, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, if you've had food for thought in all the sessions that you can see, both offline and online, we thought we'd give you a few more bites on Jaipur Bytes, where intimate conversations happen, and we try and see if we can get you a little more acquainted with the process of what goes on behind those who create. Today, of course, we are honored, absolutely honored to have Meeran Chadha Borwankar with us. She's the first woman IPS to become Director General of Police. Some of the most high-profile cases that had been extensively covered in the national and international press were handled by her at the helm. So there's much to listen to and much to learn. Of course, if you want to, then there's her book, Madam Commissioner, which is her latest, which is literally a bit of a capsule of what has been an extremely interesting life. Meera ma'am, it's an absolute honor to have you on Jaipur Bytes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarthak.
Let's go straight to the start of the journey and the IPS training, where you were just about the only woman. The gender bit was a little bit of a problem, especially when the washrooms needed to be used. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. In 1981 batch of Indian Police Service, I was the only lady officer, and not only was washroom an issue, that time the standards of physical fitness and the various events that we had to go through, like swimming, rock climbing, horse riding, and rope climbing, all those standards were the same for men and women. So training was tough.
But you were used to it, weren't you? You had been prepared.
No, as far as horse riding is concerned, since my father was in Punjab Police, yes. Swimming, no. And the kind of tough regime which we had in 80s for Indian Police Service officers, that was rather difficult for me.
Sure, but where did the idea of donning the uniform first manifest itself? Was it because you were born into a family, or did that happen gradually?
No, actually, getting into the civil services was the atmosphere in family. My sister, she's older to me by 2 years. She selected IRS. Income tax, and I first selected Indian Audits and Accounts, and now I keep telling the youth that be very careful when you select the career. Right. I realized I don't have the kind of personality which is indoor, looking into the files, into the accounts. So I appeared for the UPSC exam again and selected uniform. Of course, my father's uniform I found very powerful, very meaningful. It was always attractive.
Sure. And then, of course, you donned the uniform after a very, very rigorous training. And after that, there were other kinds of challenges that you had to sort of surmount. In the book, there is the story about you going to the Bombay docks and an officer actually refusing to work with you, saying that हम इनके साथ काम नहीं कर सकते, which has been a bit of a regular thing in your climb towards where you were at the end of the career, isn't it?
So in 80s, since women were so few in service, the comfort level of male officers, which was say 99%, 99.9% were men. So their comfort level was so low that not only was there reluctance to work with me, even to accept me as the leader who would lead them for raids against prostitution, against illicit liquor, against gambling. And the fact that I would sit in the front with the driver because I am from Indian Police Service and therefore the middle level leader, but leader nevertheless, was very high. But so was, I was also uncomfortable. So I think it was mutual, this level of discomfort. What was excessive was sometimes officers resenting my gender, my very presence. But over a period of time, now there are so many women in Indian Police Service and in non-traditional careers. that acceptance level has improved, and I would say the performance of all departments which have women in high percentage has improved.
Sure. There's
No,
also
you agree to that?
If you are saying it, I have no choice but to, because I know that academic rigor has been a hallmark of your work. There has been no question that has not been raised on file, and no question that you have not answered eloquently and in your defense that has not stood up in various courts, not just of law.
But also, I bring diversity. I represent
Absolutely.
diversity. Therefore, performance of governance improves.
There's also the fact that there are these incredible instances that you quote in your book, Madam Commissioner. There's which are just such a life lesson as far as confrontation and its hues are concerned. There is I remember reading in the book, there is an instance where there was a lower officer, but being male, he would have precedence in sitting in the front seat of the jeep, and it would have led to a confrontation, and you yourself decided to actually give up the front of the seat.
No, the other way around. That officer agreed. He was matured enough to understand that uniform matters, ranks matter, and he could convince the staff that they should not make an issue out of it. So it was the other way around. I would say that while I met some male officers who resented my presence, the presence of my gender, I also met some very matured officers who even in 80s could understand that women have a position, and once they secure that position through a tough exam in UPSC and have gone through rigorous training, they deserve to be where their rank deserves to be.
For sure. There's also the whole thing about you having to, especially when you were expecting a child, you've actually always been a hands-on leader. You've always hit the ground running, so to speak.
I feel the very definition of leadership includes being hands-on.
Sure. So describe to us one day in the life of a woman police officer in the 80s.
So as a young officer, we have lots of field work. So suppose I get up and I go to my office and I get an information that there is a murder. If it is an undetected murder, our audience must understand it involves rigorous involvement of senior officers. So in case of Maharashtra, if I get an information about a murder, I reach a spot and I find we have no clue, I have to remain there for 3 nights, so that my juniors, my investigating officers, they put their heart and soul into that detection. So I would say a typical day would include visitation to one serious crime, listening to the complaints and applications from citizens, and that is such a wide spectrum. Many women would reach me because they would suddenly find, oh, there is a woman in authority who can help us. So from domestic violence to the abuse of the elderly to simple complaints like dispute about water in the slum. In fact, many times I would leave my office around 8 in the evening to find many more people standing in queue waiting to either talk to me or to give their applications about their complaints. So lot of interaction with citizens. My being woman attracted more women citizens, and typically 1 or 2 visitations of serious crime. That would be the day, my day in 80s.
And then, of course, there are the extraordinary days like Sanjay Dutt getting arrested and being sent to Yerwada jail, and of course his movement requiring a lot of imagination from your side, so that it doesn't turn into a public incident. It'd be fascinating to know that story.
So actually, by the time Sanjay Dutt came to prisons, our audience also must understand that prison is a separate department. Police has nothing to do with it, but we go there on loan basis, like it's called deputation. So I was the chief of Maharashtra prisons, not because I belonged to the prison department, which is totally separate, but because some officers can go there on deputation. That's when Sanjay Dutt was convicted and sent to Yeroda. Now, by that time, I had also gained lots of maturity. I was already of the level of Additional Director General of Police, having put in 30 years of service. I understood that we have to handle this particular person differently, not in giving any benefits to him, but being aware of the scrutiny which we faced. So when we had to shift him, he surrendered in Arthur Road prison in Mumbai, and we had to shift him to Yeroda in Pune, where convicts are kept. The media was so much after us and chasing us, and he got scared because he had heard of me having been the chief of crime branch Mumbai, which is known for the encounters. He thought when we are shifting him at night, we may have an encounter, so-called encounter, and he may be killed. So it's true that he was so disturbed that he developed high fever. We had to change the schedule. In fact, I had sent two very senior officers to escort him because we knew media would be after us. And then we could convince him that it's a simple judicial movement. As per law, from Arthur Road to Yeroda, we changed our plans and he was very quietly shifted. Two things here. I think media should talk, people like you, more about the number of under trials, which is 70% in the prison, overcrowding, the infrastructure, lack of resources, than only concentrating on the celebrities.
Sure. It's the seduction of the celebrity, is it not? It makes for better news, better job prospects. So, you know,
I won't grudge if this can give prisons more infrastructure and lead to quick trials and less overcrowding.
There's also the fact that you were head of crime branch when encounter specialists were also firing the imagination of the media. I think Salaskar and
Salaskar, yeah. But you know, that was the time when they were very unhappy with me because I am for law, its due process, and their view is that the due process in India is so delayed, so late, like a murder trial would come up for hearing after say 3 years in the court and would lead to acquittal or conviction after 7-8 years. So these officers felt that they may, in the end of the whole long process, get acquitted. And these so-called the criminals, have such record of ruthless murders that it's better to bump them off. But I did not agree.
Was it difficult? Because I'm sure at that point of time, they were sort of being featured as heroes. They were being, they were also getting a lot of press attention, which, if sources are to be believed, etc., they were also calling upon themselves. They wanted to be famous, etc. Was that true? I mean, what was the inside story, so to speak?
Yeah, to some extent, yes. Some of them had gone, they had strayed from our training, our due process of law, rule of law, and they would selectively give information to some media persons and would have an encounter which got them so much media leverage that while it was extremely bad for us as a community, as a citizens, it gave them personal laurels. People got scared of them. Builders and politicians started using them, and everything went in their heads, and they become much larger than life, loved by media, loved by few citizens. But I'm repeating, very bad for criminal justice
But there
system.
was no second guessing of the unpopular decisions that you took regarding all of this?
Second guessing means
Was there? Did you think twice before? I mean, was it a? Let me put it this way: was it a consideration for you, thinking, "Oh, they're so popular, etc. Let them just be for a little"? Because I'm sure reining them in would not have been a very popular decision.
No. So when I came to the crime branch, I was watching it from a distance. I was earlier in Central Bureau of Investigation, so I had been watching them, seeing how harmful they are for our system per se. So by the time I occupied that chair, I had made up my mind, and they resented me so much that in the two very popular newspapers of Mumbai, a news appeared that I was trying to shield Hasina Parker, who is Daud's sister, while the fact is that I was trying to arrest her. So it's still a question mark, and I've discussed it in my book, that how news against me started appearing. And my guess is that neither media liked me, because I was not giving them those hotspots, nor these encounter specialists.
Talking of resentment, that's been a bit of a part of your career, because you were also responsible in a position of responsibility when the hanging of Ajmal Kasab happened after 26/11. You want to take us through that? Of course, it's been discussed in the book, Madam Commissioner, as well. What was the situation like? Because that must have been a very, very sensitive situation to handle, considering how inflamed the sentiment was at that time.
So I wouldn't say that there was resentment about that action.
No, of course not. Yeah.
But the government of India and government of Maharashtra decided that this particular operation of hanging would be kept totally secret, because they felt some hostile powers across the border would kill Kasab before the hanging. Hanging means that you have followed the process from Session Court to the High Court to the Supreme Court, rejection of the mercy petition by the governor, by the president, and you are saying that India believes in rule of law, even if there is a terrorist who has been captured on CCTVs, different forums, ruthlessly killing innocent citizens, we will follow law and hang him. Because of the fear that he may be killed before this process ends, it was decided that the action would be kept secret. So hanging for me had two challenges.
Yeah.
The government gave in writing that chief of prison should remain present. Now, I could have been in Yeroda and be in the superintendent Yeroda's official chamber while hanging is going on in the yard. But I thought, if this happens, people will say, ultimately it was a lady, it was a woman officer, she could not see the hanging. So I was there spot on, just to lead my team, which itself was executing for the first time. We could not find anyone who had hanged a criminal, a terrorist earlier. Second was to keep it secret. So getting Ajmal Kasab from Arthur Road, Mumbai to Yeroda, Pune in secrecy, and to hang him in total secrecy was another challenge. While people did not resent the whole process and they welcomed that a terrorist has been brought to a very ghastly story, has been brought to a logical, legal conclusion, there was total disbelief. They would tell me, अरे आप तो झूठ बोल रहे हैं, वो तो पहले ही मर गया था, वो तो अभी जिंदा है. So I would say this is the total victory of and a very professional task performed by Prison Department of State of Maharashtra with the help of other departments like Pune Police, Mumbai Police, and it should lead to faith in governance by citizens.
Sure. It was also the case, a similar case in case of Yaqub Memon as well, wasn't it, ma'am?
It was the other extreme. There was no secrecy. So we had to, it was done in Nagpur, the hanging. Nagpur police had to declare section 144 of CRPC, which means you cannot go anywhere near the prison, because media from all over the country, from international media, they came to Nagpur prison to see the hanging of a terrorist more than 20 years after 1993 blast. So this challenge was how to keep things professionally in focus, not to get swayed by media. And also, if you remember, Sarthak, early morning when we had to hang him, that night, 12 o'clock, the Supreme Court opened its door and heard a curative petition.
Yeah.
So you don't know when, by the end of the late evening, late night, whether you will be asked to perform the task or not. So lots of pressures, but then we are trained to handle these pressures. And again, full compliments to the prison staff of Maharashtra and the other agencies which helped us.
Finally, of course, we're living in the world of social media, ma'am, so it's only proper that we do a little listicle. So, maybe 3 to 5 things that you think the police need to be given more credit for, and 3 to 5 things that you think could certainly do with a lot of improvement.
So one thing which I feel all citizens sitting here or listening to our podcast must insist upon is that police persons all over India, in all states, are so terribly overworked. Please get us 8 hours working shift. So because we work for 14 hours, not only are we exhausted, we are not sympathetic to you when you walk into the police station with a complaint, with a genuine grievance. I've already put in 11 hours of work when you walk in. So that empathy and sympathy which you expect as citizen, you would get if you give me professional work for 8 hours, which you are not giving me. 14 hours is an average a police constable or an officer works, and with no holidays on all the festivals.
Yeah.
So I would say that one thing, if your podcast can get me, it's worth it. And second, the one weakness which I have flagged in my book is the corruption. The corruption is so prevalent in India, and the policewoman is no exception to that. That's one very weak point.
And it's important to know that a career built on fighting on many fronts and getting lauded for it is encapsulated in a wonderful book called Madam Commissioner, and for giving us hope, inspiration, and just the quiet confidence that you exude so wonderfully. Meeran Chadha Borwankar, we'd like to thank you very, very much for your time. Remember, there are things that are given to you as food for thought. 14 hours of work without festival leaves, what would that do? If that's a question that you ask, it'll be a good question to ask, to chew on as food for thought. And if there's anything you want to say, please feel free. The comment section is open. Jaipur Bytes, ladies and gentlemen, with the wonderful Meeran Chadha Borwankar. Thank you very much for your time, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.